Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Governor Cuomo and everybody else who I've been seeing up here for the past day or two. So we're glad to have everybody here and have this opportunity with the governor to sign our mold abatement legislation. I think, as we all know, mold is everywhere, but in our environment, but inside of buildings, particularly with a source of moisture where it can grow and continue to produce spores. It can lead to illness for people in those buildings, in schools, in homes, in other office buildings. We see people with lung disease, asthma, pneumonitis, sometimes even more serious illnesses. We saw an epidemic of this after Superstorm Sandy, where so many buildings in the downstate area were flooded, and people were having to live with flooded basements and flooded homes, and that source of moisture in those buildings kept mold growing, and many people became sick. Unfortunately, at that time and before that, in situations in schools, there were really no regulations requiring people to be properly trained and certified, and really no consumer protections. How would you know when you hired somebody to come in to look at your home or look at your office building where there was a mold problem, that they were being honest and giving you with the right type of evaluation? And the people coming in to do the cleanup, the contractors and the workers, how would you know that they were properly trained and were giving you the right way of abating or cleaning up that mold hazard? For a number of years, we've in the LIUNA have been training people to do that abatement properly, but without a real requirement for proper training and proper assessment. It was really just totally voluntary, and consumers had no way of knowing what they were what kind of services they were getting. So this legislation will provide the framework for that consumer protection. So people doing the assessment of a possible mold problem will have to be licensed and properly trained. People that do the contractors, the same. They have to be properly trained, properly licensed. And the people doing the abatement work will also have to be properly trained and licensed. We know that this kind of program works for asbestos and lead, which are somewhat similar hazards inside of buildings, but we feel that with mold abatement, with mold and mold problems, this will provide the same sort of framework to protect people in office buildings, in their homes, in other settings where there may be serious mold problems, and prevent many people from getting ill from those problems. So let me now introduce Edison Severino, who's business manager of our abatement local in New York City, Local 78. A lot of experience and
Thank you, Jim, Armand, Ray. Good morning to all. Good morning. I am very proud to be standing here today to commend Governor Cuomo and the New York State Legislature on their commitment to make sure that people in New York are protected from the dangers of mold exposure. Their commitment has been shown with this legislation, and this legislation would be the framework and the first step in ensuring that every building, every worker, and every New Yorker is protected. By strengthening regulatory oversight and requiring the licensing of mold assessment and remediation specialists, New York State will be eliminating unscrupulous mold contractors and producing more licensed and trained mold removal experts. In places like New York City and Long Island that were critically impacted by Sandy, this bill will ensure that building owners and homeowners are protected from scrupulous contractors that came in during Sandy. We saw that everywhere, where they came in and really cheated on homeowners, and because there was no real requirements. Now, New York State joined other states that are at the forefront of the fight against mold. So I want to again commend the governor on his commitment to this, and I think that with this first step, we're going to be able to lay the groundwork for everybody to be protected throughout the state. Now I'd like to introduce an apprentice member of Local 78, Brian Peterson. Brian is a member of Local 78. Before he became a member, he was involved with the community groups like We Act and Make the Road. He got involved working with Sandy together with us in a commitment that we made with the community organization to bring in members of the community to help clean their own communities. So he worked in Coney Island, and he worked in the Rockaways, cleaning mold from homes. And that was a program that was very successful, where the community came together with the local to ensure that that the homeowners were protected from the dangers of mold. So I know that you've been involved with not only doing the work, but also as a community activist. Thank you for the work you do. Thank you for the work you did during Sandy, helping our city rebuild, helping our state rebuild, and helping us all come back and come back stronger than ever. So thank you, and please come up to the podium.
Good evening, everyone. Like Edison's, oh, hold on. Yeah, they told me that was there, so I'm gonna use it. All right. Good evening, good evening, good evening. On a more serious note, Edison, brought up the fact, when I was out in Sandy's, I witnessed firsthand people eating around mold, people feeding their families in these pantries, going to homes where the mold was still present and these people had to eat, But at the same time, today we're gonna do something about it, and moving forward, hopefully this law will change everything. With that said, my name is Brian Pearson. I was born in Brownsville, Brooklyn, and today, I was born in Brownsville, Brooklyn. I'm a proud father. Today I'm a proud father of a 14-year-old daughter. Okay. Thank you. Before joining the labor unions, me and my family struggled with housing and employment, just basic needs to feed my family and put food on the table. The apprenticeship program has provided me and my family today with a pathway to the middle class. In the name of Shirley Hisley, we're moving on up, all right? So I just want to say that, and bills like the mold remediation create standards that keep my colleagues and myself safe, enabling us to continue to work in a safer environment. Further, this legislation will also protect consumers from being swindled, what Edison talked about, swindled, and real standards for those working with mold, all right? I want to thank leaders like Governor Cuomo for standing up for working families. And at this time, I'm going to introduce, thank you. At this time, acknowledgements, I'm going to introduce General Secretary Treasurer of New England Regional Manager of Laborers International Union of North America, Armand Sabantoni. All right? As well as Vice President and Eastern Manager, Laborers Union International Union of North America, Raymond Pacino.
Come on, Raymond. Thank you, Brian. Nice job, man. Okay, good job.
Take over.
I don't think I'm going to need this. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, brothers and sisters. Governor, good morning. And on behalf of all of us here today, I can't tell you how honored that we are here, that you are here today, and honoring us with the signing of the mold abatement bill. Governor, our union has been in existence since April 13th, 1903, 112 years. And our union has very significant moments and significant events throughout the history of our union. And today will go down as one of those significant events, having you here and signing that bill. Let's hear it for our friend, the governor. Brothers and sisters, a fair working environment is not something that should never be left to chance. I know it, you know it, and thankfully, we have a governor who knows it as well. Governor Cuomo has proven himself as a true champion of the working class people in organized labor. And he's been there and been that way since day one when he took office. He's been a strong supporter of design-build models for big construction projects, which means more jobs for men and women in labor. He's fought to make sure that prevailing wages are attached to all public construction projects, which means fair play, fair pay that our men and women deserve in the labor movement. And he's been a tireless advocate for project labor agreements on big construction projects so that when New York is rebuilding for the future, it's the men and women in labor who are getting the job done. All of this is translating into great things for labor and great things for the state of New York. In fact, under Governor Cuomo, New York has spent more money on capital construction projects than any other governor in the United States. And you're seeing the proof of it all across the state, from the resurgence of building projects in Buffalo to the new Tappan Zee Bridge that is rising over the Hudson, and yesterday's announcement of the new LaGuardia. Our union and this state is better because of Governor Cuomo. That is why we are honored today to have him here as our champion of labor. Governor, can you come to the podium, please? Governor, every year the laborers in New York meet, and we usually meet at the Sagamore because it's so beautiful. And as you can see, and not only the leadership of our union meets here, but LIUNA is a family. So every year when we set the course and the missions and the goals of our union, the entire families of the leadership are here because everything we do is for our families and our members, and we know that we cannot get that done without men like you. Without governors that care about the working men and women and care about labor unions and what we represent and what we build each and every day. So Governor, you are our champion. And on behalf of the Laborers International Union, Raymond, all our members, Terry O'Sullivan, we want to present to you the highest honor that we give in the Laborers Union, and that's the bronze statue of the hod carrier. In 1903, when we started our union, Governor, nobody wanted us. And we started with 17,000 men, hard-working men and women. They carried the hod of brick. They tended the masons. And that's how our union grew over the years to 1,100,000 members across the United States and Canada. And so, on behalf of the Laborers International Union, we will present you at another date the hod, because we also represent 200,000 mail handlers, and somewhere in the postal system, that hod is on its way. So you will be receiving that hod, but we also have a proclamation for you today, and thank you what you do for our laborers and all working men and women in the state of New York. Thank you, Governor.
Governor. Congratulations, Governor, and thank you for being here today with us. We really appreciate it. And if we represented the postal workers, it would have been here today. But you know, the mail handlers do their job, but postal workers eventually get it here. I just don't want this time to go by without taking the opportunity to congratulate you and commend you on your hard work in making sure that 421A got done and is getting done. Governor, I know that you stated publicly that this work should be done with prevailing wages, that it should be done with skilled crafts, and your efforts have made sure that it's going to be done that way. We really appreciate it. The men and women of New York State appreciate it, and thank you for providing them the opportunity to go to work and make a decent living in producing this work and making sure that the housing is done correctly, it's done right, it's not going to be falling down, and that we're going to have the opportunity to do a job. So thank you again, Governor. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you very much. It really is my pleasure to be here. First, I did not get the memo about the orange shirt, and I was not invited to the golf outing, which I have a little resentment over. First, it is my pleasure to be with all of you. As Armand said, that Leuna is a family. This is a genuine friendship. This is not a political friendship. It's not a political relationship. It goes back 10 years. You have all been very, very good to me in good times and in bad times. Before me, you had a great relationship with my father that went back many, many years. So this is a multi-generational, true friendship and relationship of common values, and a friendship that comes from the heart. And that means a lot to me. And it meant a lot to my father. I was thinking about it coming up today, how much he loved Lake George, how many good experiences I had with him, and how close he was to the laborers. So let's give him a round of applause and labor a round of applause. To Dr. Milius and Ed Severino, congratulations to them for all the good work they've done and the good work that we've done together. Armand Sabatoni and Ray Pacino, we do a lot of work. We've gone back many, many years together, and I'm very proud of what we've done. I'm proud of what it's done for Leuna, and I'm proud of what it's done for the state of New York. This bill that we're going to sign is emblematic of it. This is an abatement bill. In this case, it's a mold abatement bill. And what it's saying is more and more, your occupation is technical and specialized and skilled, and you have to know what you're doing. I was involved. I've been involved in construction all my life. We did all the Sandy reconstruction in New York. Nothing is as simple as it used to be. You have to know what you're doing when you're dealing with mold, for example. I can tell you how many homeowners we dealt with where they thought they had the mold abated, and it came back, because if you don't do it right and there's mold anywhere, you close the wall and the mold is going to continue to grow. And it can cause serious damage to a homeowner. It can cause serious damage to a worker if you don't know what you're doing. Mold today is like asbestos 15 years ago, right? In the beginning, anybody could take out the asbestos. Yeah, they didn't even know what they were doing to themselves, and they were actually doing more harm than good because it became friable all through the home. It took us time to learn that. We've now learned it with mold, but more and more we're learning and we're seeing that to do the jobs that you do, you need the apprenticeship. Brian is exactly right. You need the training, you need the skills, and that's why the union is so important, because that's what the union does. It says it's not anyone who can go out there and do this. You have to be skilled, you have to be organized, you have to be trained, you have to be supervised, and the consumer has to know that they're getting the right product. And that's what you do. It's not just to protect the workers. It's to protect the people who are getting your service. And that's what this mold abatement bill is all about. It passed the legislature. I'm going to sign it. It passed the legislature for one reason, because your union got behind it and they worked very hard and they made it a reality. So let's give them a round of applause. And let me say this before I sign the bill. 2 points. First, we said that we were going to get the state working once again when we ran for governor the first time. It's been 4 years. 4 years we have turned the fundamental trajectory of this state around. When we came in, we had a $10 billion deficit. Jobs were leaving. People were leaving. New York had no future. In 4 years, we did a 180-degree turn. We went from a $10 billion deficit to a $5 billion surplus. When we came in, the Democrats and the Republicans were fighting at whatever it is. Couldn't pass a bill. They wouldn't agree on anything. Everybody was playing politics. We said we're going to do it a different way. I don't care if you're a Democrat. I don't care if you're a Republican. You're a New Yorker first. And act like a New Yorker, and let's get things done, because when you have gridlock, everybody loses. So we came in, we passed 4 budgets on time, first time in 40 years that has happened. And then we said we're going to get to work building the state. Because you look at New York State, what made New York, New York? What we built made New York, New York. You have Manhattan, which was a beautiful example of just what you can do when you have your intelligence meet your ambition with a sense of, and a culture that says we won't take no for an answer. New York is what it is because we built the impossible. I mean, think about it. Everything was the impossible. We're going to build the Empire State Building, the tallest building in history. And then we're going to come back and we're going to build another building that's even taller than that, the World Trade Center. Then you knock that down, we're going to now come back stronger and taller than ever before with the Freedom Tower. 800 miles of subway system. One bridge after the other, longer, taller, Verrazano, George Washington, always breaking the records. And not just downstate. The Erie Canal, which started it all upstate, was a labor's miracle. Think about it, 1817. Our governor says we're going to build the Erie Canal. It's going to go from Albany to Buffalo. And it's going to open up the West. It was Governor DeWitt Clinton. That was his vision. The question was, how can you get goods to the western part of the country? 1817, the goods would come by ship. They would land on the East Coast. Then you had to put them on rail and bring them to the West. It was a long process. DeWitt Clinton says, I have a better idea. You have the ships come in. They come into the port of New York City. They go up the Hudson River. And then they make a they make a left at Albany. And you go across the state and you come out in Buffalo. And you're in the Great Lakes and you can go wherever you want to go. And they said, Governor, one question. When they make the left at Albany, how do they get to Buffalo? Because that's all land. He said, no problem. We'll dig a canal that connects Albany to Buffalo, 1817. They said he was insane, that he lost his mind. Thomas Jefferson said he should be impeached. He said, no, we're New York. We're going to build a 524-mile canal. And we're going to do it in 7 years. Because we're New York. And they did. No hydraulics, just men and women and mules, and they dug the Erie Canal. And that's what made New York, New York, because then the ships could come in New York City up the Hudson, and they could get to the Great Lakes, and they went out, and that made New York the greatest port. That's who we are. Somewhere along the way, we lost that. And we lost that momentum. We're building the Tappan Zee Bridge. 20 years they were talking about replacing the Tappan Zee Bridge. I remember as a kid, they were talking about the Tappan Zee is going to fall, and every time you went over the Tappan Zee, it had those metal plates, and they'd move a little bit, you know. And you'd wonder, is this it? Am I going down? Take the seatbelt off. Do I swim? What do I do? 20 years, they talked about it. Traumatized 2 generations of children that the Tappan Zee was going to fall down. I said, do it if you're going to do it. We became governor. We said, you know what? The Tappan Zee Bridge has got to be replaced. They've been talking about it for 20 years. We're going to do it. A year later, we broke ground on the new Tappan Zee Bridge. Yesterday, we announced we're going to rebuild LaGuardia Airport. The same thing. Vice President Biden lands in LaGuardia last year and says, if I was blindfolded, I would think I was in a third world country when I landed in LaGuardia. I mean, people are flying through LaGuardia for years. Anybody who went there, you'd have to say this is madness. This is the greatest state in the country, the greatest city in the country. The airport was from LaGuardia, named for LaGuardia. It hadn't been fixed since LaGuardia. It was totally out of size, totally out of scale. What happened to the ambition? What happened to the drive? What happened to the pride? It's New York. Build a new airport that handles the flight and the travel, and you can be proud of them. When people land, they say, wow, this is New York. And we announced yesterday with the Vice President, $4 billion, the Port Authority is going to build a new LaGuardia. And then, as Armand said, we doubled the roads and bridges budget. We're going from $6 billion to $12 billion in construction because you have to go forward or you're going backwards. And then the 421A bill is not just another set of numbers. You know, in government, everything is numbers and letters, ABC, ALG. Nobody knows what anybody's talking about. 421A was very important. 421A was an affordable housing program that government ran in New York City. And it gave real estate developers tax credits, tax breaks to build affordable housing, which is a good thing. But the way it was proposed, 421A was done without organized labor. Now, this would have been a very dangerous precedent, in my opinion, because if government didn't require organized labor to be at the table, then for sure those real estate developers weren't going to bring organized labor to the table. And if you could build non-union in Manhattan on a government-sponsored project, that would have put labor in a very, very bad position, and it was a very bad precedent. And we stood up together, and we said to that legislature, we're not going to pass a bill using taxpayer funds to build complex, sophisticated housing unless organized labor is at the table. And we said if we join arms and we wage a campaign and we do what we have to do and we get people out and we show up and we make our voices heard, we will make sure the New York State Legislature does not pass a bill without organized labor at the table, and that is exactly what happened. And that, is, my friends, is what this relationship is all about. We're going to rebuild this state. We're going to make this state better than it ever has been, because that's our responsibility as citizens. It's our responsibility as parents, right? You're here with your children. What's your responsibility as a parent? To leave this place better for the next generation, right? To leave them with a better home. We're going to rebuild this state. We're going to leave them a better New York. We want our children to stay in New York. We're going to do it faster and better than any generation before, and we're going to do it together, government and organized labor, Andrew Cuomo and Leuna together. Thank you, and God bless you.